if you are the most important person in your business isn't very valuable. It's because no investor wants to buy a business where they're going to have to install someone who's got this special set of skills like the founder.
I think it's important to say the founder should be focusing on those higher value tasks, getting away from the operational aspects of the business that are just mundane, day-to-day things, handing that off to those who that person entrusts so that way they can focus on the higher value tasks. Hello, Gene. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic.
Great. It's great to have you here on the Common SensAI Podcast. I'm the host, Steven Arevalo. Gene Hammett, pleasure to have you here. It's an honor, actually. We had the opportunity to be introduced to one another, and I was just amazed to know that you've actually been a big force in this environment of coaching, personal coaching. You've actually also started, or many years ago, about 16 years ago, you started the Growth Think Tank, which I think now you've recorded over 1,300 episodes. You've had over 1,000 people on the podcast. So congratulations to you there.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride to be doing it this long. I think I have the longest running leadership podcast in the world by my understanding. It's certainly by number of episodes.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And in addition to that, I would just, based on everything you've shared with me, you're sort of a serial entrepreneur. And then maybe one thing that people don't know, or they do, is that you also are a fierce jiu-jitsu competitor, world champion in your division.
Not quite the world champion. I'm on the journey.
Okay.
And I'm not sure how fierce I am. I mean, I guess it depends on who you are. I am the old guy in the room, though. I can tell you that because I'm surrounded by a bunch of killers that are world champions in our academies.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks for that clarification. But yes, just yet another framework with which you use to build your processes. It's kind of like how you think. It's how you execute. You take a lot of what you do in life and you apply that, and you help to apply that knowledge to others.
I guess it's a part of who I am now because I've run other businesses that were about money and about, just freedom that I wanted to create and travel the world. But the work I'm doing now, I think really is my life's purpose. We do well from a financial standpoint, but it is making an impact. I mean, just had a client today who's normally a little bit hot-headed around, anything that comes up, the people problems, the things that are not the way they should be. And he's like, I'm handling it with much more of a level head, much more calm than normal. And I'm getting better results from my team. And so that kind of internal transformation is an example of the work that we do.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, that's a great segue into like kicking this off because, when we had the chance to connect the other day, you shared with me kind of a key concept about how the bottleneck to a growth in a company or in an organization, unfortunately, is a lot of times the founder. And so you explained that to me, but I'd love to give you an opportunity to open this up to people and share with them that idea.
It's not all businesses that have the same bottleneck. In fact, as your business grows, you should be having new bottlenecks and you begin to work them out. Our sweet spot of the clients we work with typically have around 20 to 100 employees. And those founders, had a great idea and they were so involved with the business, they treat it like it's their baby. And I've been there before where it's hard to let go and it's hard to step back and let others take care of things. I mean, it's easy to step back on things that we're not good at or we don't want to do. But some of the challenge is when you're pretty good at something and you like doing it, but you shouldn't be doing it anymore because you should be developing a team that can handle those aspects of business and growth. And you should be focused on the next thing. And if you systematically look at that in your business, the founder dependency no longer becomes an issue. But the sweet spot is somewhere around 20 to 100 employees where the founder is typically very founder dependent. And there's some big problems with this, Steven, that I can unpack for you guys. But the first one is a seller dependent business is very hard to sell and in some cases not very valuable, because no one wants to buy a job.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think it's important to say, like you said, like the founder should be focusing on those higher value tasks, right? Getting away from the operational aspects of the business that are just mundane, you know, day-to-day things, handing that off to those who that person entrusts, so that way they can focus on the higher value tasks.
Yeah, but it's hard. And it's hard for me. Like, we're going through a phase in our business right now where I'm not the only CEO coach.
Mm.
And so I have to ensure that I do a proper transition. I can't just throw another coach into my clients that I, have made a promise to make an impact with, and just say, here, have at it.
Right.
I've got to document my processes. I've got to, find the the flow of things. I've got to build agendas and build real clarity with that coach before I can hand them off, because there's different ways to scale coaching businesses, but in general, beyond coaching, in order to begin to let go of the work, you've got to start to document what you're doing. And I don't mean step by step with SOPs. I mean, in some cases, yes, but in some cases, it's just frameworks that you build, or decision-making tools that allow other people to step in and do it a little bit more like they would do it. And we founders have to be okay with that. And there's some rules around that that I can share if you guys ever want to unpack those.
Yeah. I think, well, that's a great way to tee up some later conversation that I have planned for today's podcast. Again, just a quick mention that Common Sense AI, we do talk about AI topics. And one of the things you mentioned here, is, and I think we had this conversation last time, is maybe AI is not there right now for coaching, but people will certainly get there. And I think that AI, there are some very useful, very clear use cases where AI can support aggregating that knowledge and being able to build the processes like you're talking about. Of course, every business is unique, but when we enable AI to start kind of listening in, being a part of that documentation process, there's some actually pretty powerful ways that I'd be happy to share as well that we've learned with clients. But I think at a core, it does get back to this idea that you've probably seen that you can apply your methodologies and your frameworks to any business, really, because they're agnostic to the type of industry or whatever it might be. Is that correct? Would that be a fair assumption?
Yeah, I will tell you, I didn't start there. I had to grow into this place, and I think that in some cases, maybe I think I jumped too early, because the more narrow your business is in any shape, the easier it is to refine. When it's broad, for example, I used to only work with marketing companies, and when I was in that phase early in my coaching career, I've been doing this 16 years. I was working with marketing companies, small, and I was helping them zero in on their best clients, and I was helping them understand how to create services that were really impactful, that got an ROI, and that the clients wanted to buy, and how to price these things. And so I'm not, I wasn't broad in my approach. I will tell you, over time, those clients got to be successful, and then as I continue to raise my fees, a lot of the marketing companies were like, oh, we're not going to make that kind of investment in coaching. And so I had to look a little bit bigger beyond smaller marketing companies that might have been one person or 10 people. And I was starting to look at companies that were 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 people. And I went beyond the marketing aspects, because what they really needed was leadership can cross those lines of industry. And it actually is a benefit to have different industry elements in there. So right now I have financial services, I have like sort of fintech companies, I have manufacturing companies, and so blue collar and white collar. I am able to help all of them through the different phases of leadership, because now I'm really focused on that aspect of growth, not marketing or not sales or anything like that. So narrowing it in has helped me scale my business up.
Cool. Narrowing, could you clarify that? Narrowing what in? Narrowing the
Well,
narrowing
first I narrowed it into the market, like a specific industry. And so I understood,
starting narrow. Yeah.
yeah, I started really narrow. And then as I grew to broader industries, but I ended up narrowing my
Your
focus
framework.
of the promise I made to the clients. For
Got it.
example, founder dependency is happening in all different industries.
Right.
Now, there's some industries I just don't work well in. I'm not chasing crypto. I'm not chasing, government-based businesses. I'm not chasing real estate or lawyers, mainly because real estate and lawyers have so many coaches in their domain that they're not looking outside. Now,
Sure.
could I help them? Absolutely, I think I could,
Yeah.
beyond what their industry-focused coaches are. But I narrowed my sweet spot, if you will, to the founder dependent businesses that were feeling, overworked and, overstressed and leading toward burnout. And they were wondering why their people weren't stepping up. Or, I mean, I'll say this with a smile. Some of my founders might say, I feel like I'm babysitting adults. Or why won't people just do their job? And all this stuff is more of a leadership issue. And that can transcend across many industries. And so I narrowed the service kind of focus, but I broadened the industries.
That's great. Yeah, and I wanted to make sure to cover that because I think that's important for
Yeah.
people to know who you actually work with, right, and who you can provide benefit to, and just to kind of name that list then again. And if I miss one, correct me. But you said you started off in marketing, so clearly you probably still have founders in the marketing industry, but then you also do fintech, and then what were the other ones?
We have manufacturing in different ways. We have e-commerce companies that are manufacturing their own products, and there's a few others that kind of slip in there that are not necessarily, they're one-offs, if you will. But we are very, very easy to turn down work that doesn't fit our work, and that's one of the signals from a success standpoint is what work you should be chasing. One of the filters I use when I'm selecting a client is if they really lean into the work, if they really do a job, will they be a good case study for me? If for example, I opened up with a little example. This company was about 5.5 million. They're growing fast already. They were doing 40% growth. The year before me, it was stagnant. So it didn't move because the founder dependency issue was really just had a grip on the founder.
Mm-hmm.
Just in 3 months, we've opened up his calendar so he has more time. We've empowered him to empower his people, giving him different skills, his ability to have tough conversations and communicate conversations that align people, and his own identity. Those are the 4 common areas that we work with: time, empowerment, communication, and identity shifting in that first 3 months. Because just those 4 things we have found, when you get them right, will make the biggest impact in the shortest amount of time. So I'm not doing this over a weekend. I'm not doing this in, a compressed time frame of 1 week. I am doing this over time in 3 months. And it has proven to work.
What were those 3 things, those key things?
Getting control of their time.
Yep.
Empowering the people the right way, communications that align, and identity shift.
That's great.
And those 4 things, we're doing them, and we won't take on any client that we don't feel like is ready to explode with that. And so this one client came back and said, now that I have time that I didn't have before, I have put out bids for 225 million. Again, their revenue was 5.5 million. He goes, I won't win all of it, but what if I win 10% of it?
Right.
And the business just explodes because he's built a stronger foundation that isn't dependent on him. There's many more elements to it, but like I'm not taking on a client that just, kind of stagnant and doesn't have the opportunity for real growth because they're not as committed to it as my clients that want growth.
Yeah, I think that's such a powerful story. Like you said, it also, when you come in and you analyze who your next clients are going to be, it is this nuance and this balance of, okay, this person has a lot of potential, and you kind of know already, you've been in the industry, in the game for so long, you kind of know the delicate balance of their potential versus where they could be versus, them actually being able to execute these things. Because for you, like you said, at your stage, it's not about money. It's about being able to get results for the clients that you actually work with, and allocating your time in a way that's useful, that allows you to tell these incredible stories from 5 million to 225, or, whatever it might be.
Mhm.
That's an incredible story. And, well, some could sit and say, oh, well, there's not this direct line. It's like, there doesn't need to be. There's enough of a, um, like in marketing and digital marketing, everything is about like you being able to measure like the CAC and the CPL and all this
Yeah.
stuff. Like, yeah, but, in this world, it's a very clear indicator that, at this point, I think a CEO or a founder would very easily attribute their success to, the shift that you've been able to help them through, which is great.
Yeah, I wish there was more of a direct line, because that would be great. But, you know, yeah, I had a client, another different client, $4 million in revenue, about 20 employees. And this was years ago. And we worked together for 4 years. Now, we went through a lot of different things, and we did all aspects of the services we provide. And, our last engagement was 2 years ago. Until recently, they just rehired me because we got results, and there was another area that we wanted to focus on. But 2 years ago, the fine tuning of that was one meeting. They paid me to come in for one day with their executive team, and literally he called me back a year later and he goes, I took that one meeting and I was able to create the business of my dreams. So we had built a foundation before, and then he had reached a new kind of roadblock, a new choke point of the business. And we defined what it was. We worked on a plan, and he just went and executed it because he had built that foundation before. And like gives me credit. Like, they went out and sold the business. They went out and hired the new people. They went out and maybe even fired some people because they had to let go of the wrong people.
Right.
And he's like, because of that one meeting, I look back at that's when things changed. And
That's
so did
incredible that you
we?
can attribute that.
Yeah, did we? Do the work? No, but we were a catalyst to the new idea, to a shift in focus, or whatever it may be.
Right.
And it's different for everyone. There's no cookie cutter approach to this. Everyone knows this. Like, what you can read about in stories with others may not be your issue.
Right.
Some people have problems with control. So if we go back to founder dependency, one of the common areas that we hear with founders is, well, I could do it better and faster myself, so I just do it. Oh, okay. Well, that opens up one of my other tools that I use. Is called the 5 levels of leadership,
Yeah.
which I showed you when we talked before. Do you want me to unpack that just really quickly?
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to, before we jump into this
Yes.
section of the podcast, I just wanted to reiterate what I heard from you too, and that's the problems basically that a founder, that an organization encounters at this moment in time may be different than the problems that they encounter later on. And so that's a very dynamic play in terms of the the timeline, that when you come in, and when you finally end, you're kind of like working through that journey with the founder. So I just want to say it's great to hear, because, yeah, like the problems that exist today are going to be different when they're going from the 5 million to the 25 million. So
I'll give you just a tease of what some of those other problems might be, and this happens quite often. There's a power struggle or some kind of conflict between two co-founders.
Mm.
Not everyone has two co-founders, but maybe it's a COO and a CEO, or maybe it's someone else that's really in some kind of conflict, and we see it very often. I would say probably 60 to 70% of businesses that have a co-founder situation
Yep.
they grow to a point where, like, okay, the way we used to work together is no longer working. There's a lot more control that's going on. And so that's a kind of a future problem that founder dependency businesses have that they have to be aware of.
Yeah.
Not everyone has a co-founder, so it doesn't apply for everyone, but deep rooted. And I've worked on issues like, I'm saying this with a smile, 2 co-founders where one of them said he mansplains to me all the time. And like, it's a real issue. And we had to get to the heart of that so that they can communicate and get past that. And we were able to do that in a very short period of time. So,
Very cool.
yeah, you get it right on founder dependency. You solve that problem, and guess what? It creates another problem because the next level of growth requires you to evolve and grow, and you have to keep addressing these things until you get to the point of real freedom, which is our latest book that I think we're going to unpack today, talking about Get Founder Freedom.
Get founder freedom. That's right. Yeah. So with that said, let's hop into the 5 levels of freedom.
So 5 levels of freedom is my proprietary work, and I will say it's evolved over time. It started out as 4 levels. And as I was working with this, and as I work with all of my frameworks and content, I'm open to improving. And so when I was working with this, the first level was anti-leader. And this is really a micromanager. No one self-assesses themselves as a micromanager. I haven't found that person who goes, that's me. But we know that they're out there. Level 2 is where the bulk of founders before 10 million in revenue sit. And it's a transactional leader. What I mean by that is they're a doer. They are leading, but they spend most of their time doing work. It could be selling. It could be, writing code. It could be running the operations of the business. It could be spending time in email and spreadsheets. All of that is a transactional leader. And they might say to themselves, I can do it better or faster, so I'll just do it myself. And that's level 2. And if you stay there, you are not playing at the higher levels of leadership, obviously. So level 3 would be a strategic leader. They're a big picture thinker. They're not doing the work as much, but they're thinking about how we do it, prioritizing what we do. Levels 1, 2, and 3 are all work focused. If you think about that, level 1, the anti-leader is trying to control the work, and so they're micromanaging. Level 2 leaders is stepped up to a doer, and level 3 is thinking about how we do it. Nowhere in there is it thinking about people. That's where level 4 comes in, the people leader. That's where the founder has truly moved to probably the CEO role. Beyond just the title, but the actual function of CEO, which is the carrier of culture, the person who is developing other leaders across the company. And you're going to spend a lot of time in this area before you get to level 5. But very few people get to level 4, in my opinion, based on all the research we've done through all the podcast interviews. And I can give you the numbers if you're curious. But level 5 is the compound leader. This is a really special place. This might be the chairman of the board, completely out of the day-to-day of the work. No, doesn't carry a quota, doesn't get involved with the process or customer experience or anything like that. They are truly sitting at a level where they go to board meetings and they spend time with the executives of the company, helping them grow and be better leaders. And it's very rare to be a compound leader. Yeah. What we find most likely is people get to level 4 and they stay there for a decade because they are working on their leadership and they are enjoying the fruits of that because their team is doing the work and they have more freedom than ever before. They can travel for weeks on end, traveling and doing anything with work or even on their own freedom. So level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What you really want to know is levels 1, 2, and 3 are work focus, and levels 4 and 5 are people focus, being a better leader. What I didn't unpack there, and if there was a visual, I would show you guys this. There's a gap between 3 and 4. That's the leadership ravine. What that represents is the difficulty to go from 3 to 4. And where I say this is because a fire comes up. And immediately your thought is, oh, I've got to handle this myself. So there's an inner conflict with being pulled back in to probably level 2. Because if you're a firefighter, you're in level 2. You're doing the work.
Right.
And so the leadership ravine, it just represents the difficulty of of lifting through that. Now, once you get past it, sometimes you get pulled back in, and that's okay, because I didn't say this, and I'm going to make this very explicit. You're going to spend probably time in multiple levels,
Right.
probably 2, 3, and 4.
And
The
you'll just
real
be
determination of where you are is
between them.
where you spend most of your time. If you're spending most of your time doing, you're in 2. If you spend most of your time planning, thinking, you're in 3. If you spend most of your time developing your people, carrying the culture, then you're in 4.
Gotcha. And what was level 1 again?
The anti-leader. I jokingly say this should be like -10 because it's working in against the culture. There's no A player in the world that wants to work for a micromanager, and that's the anti-leader. Right? They're going to drive away their talented people. We've probably all been with people like that it's just, they're overbearing and they don't even realize it. It's a blind spot for most of them.
Yep. No, that's great. So I have that structure there, and hopefully that came across. It would be great to have like a whiteboard on the back, just writing the 5 levels. Maybe we could put that into the final edit too.
That's why there is a whiteboard back here.
Oh, there you go. There you go. So that the 5 levels, the level 1 anti-leader, level 2 you're doing, level 3 you're strategic, but then level 4 you're developing your people, and then level 5 you're at like an executive level, talking at the board, talking to your executives.
Yeah. It's like the chairman of the board, right? It's, if you think about it in sports analogy, right? The transactional leader is the guy on the field.
Right.
Whatever sport you pick, it's the guy doing the thing, winning the game. Great. And that in early founder dependency, that's where you should be.
Right.
But you get to the point where you move to being like more of an offensive coach. That's where you're a strategic leader. You're not the head coach, because that is the probably people leader.
Mm-hmm.
And then the compound leader is the guy in the owner's box.
Right.
They get to watch the game.
Yep.
They don't get involved with player decisions. They don't get involved with playmaking. They don't get involved with the problems that they have. They just get to sit back and go, hopefully I put the right team on the field and the right coach in play.
Yep.
And so for those sports analogy people out there, sorry if I lost anyone.
No. And then
it's
when
kind of
the
a good
World
way to
Series
think about
gets won, they get up there and,
Yeah.
hold that trophy.
And you can probably see it right away. Founder-dependent businesses, just to connect the dots for you guys, you're on the field being the quarterback. And it's a very important role early in a development of a company.
Right.
But at some point in time, you've got to be able to let go of being on the field and move off the field, out of doing the work. And, doing that is hard for founders, because it has a grip on them. They're valuable. And many of them are concerned, like, what happens when my team doesn't need me? And I get to smile and go, you get to do whatever you want. You get to focus on the next innovation. You get to play with AI and see how that can work and transform your business. But right now, you don't even have time to do that, because all you're doing is running the business the way you know how.
Right.
And so, like, right now is a great time for people leaders, because they have much more time to look at AI and figure out, how could we leverage this to really transform our business?
That's another great point that I will wait again. I'll wait again to segue until I ask you one more question. But you're absolutely right. Like, a founder would be the most primed to be able to analyze their business, and if they had also a coach or someone they could trust that knew the capabilities of AI, then you could really like dial things in and collaborate, because that's where like the magic happens. There should almost be an AI coach. Like, that's what my new role could be, Gene, is an AI coach.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a lot of emerging job opportunities, right? One of them is, and it's playing out there. I don't know how good it is going on in the market, but it's moving so fast in AI, in my opinion.
Yep.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
But how can a company, I have a company that just did this recently. I think they have about 20 customer service reps. They're not using AI to replace any people yet. But what they're doing is I was just curious. I said, how do you pull together all of the processes to do the thing? Now, we'll tell you, they sell merchant processing. I thought this was funny because I think I'm got a
waiting to
little bit of
hear.
humor behind this. I go, how many people call customer service because their terminal doesn't work? They can't take credit cards. And they're like, well, that's probably 90% of the reasons why they call. And I go, how many times are the solutions turn it off and turn it back on?
Like,
I think he goes 80% of the time. Now that doesn't need to be an AI. This is the first move we make in customer service. Did you power cycle this? What does that mean? Turn it on, turn it off, turn it back on. But what they've done, and my point behind this is they took all the other stuff that was in very disparate places and they put it into an AI tool, and they trained that tool to have a quicker access. So a customer service doesn't have to go look in 3 places. They can do a few keystrokes or maybe even one keystroke, and it immediately shows, oh, let me walk you through how to do that.
yes.
And that is a shift that's happening, not to replace jobs, but to maybe make it so that we could do, instead of having 20 people, we could get by with 10 and service our same accounts. Or maybe we just can grow and not have to
Right. Yeah.
have
Take those
to hire
20
more people.
Let's grow. Let's be more efficient. Let's do, and it's not like necessarily putting all that effort on the individual. It's just allowing that individual to have more efficiency with what they do.
Exactly. And that, it doesn't have to be the CEO in my example. It could be, but the CEO has got a different perspective of
Right.
this. And if they're spending so much time in their inbox, in spreadsheets, doing work, selling, whatever it is, they're not having that much time to pick their head up and look at the future.
That's right.
And my clients that are getting out of founder dependency, they spend 50% of their time with their head up, not in the work, but 50% or more of their time looking at, where are we going to be in a year from now? Where are we going to be in 3 years from now? And it does, AI is part of that, could be something else.
Right.
And that's a real benefit behind getting out of the founder dependency mode
Yep.
that we've been talking about.
That's great. That's great. So we've talked about just that general framework of the founder dependency. We've talked about the 5 levels of leadership, and that's where we also introduced your book, Get Founder Freedom. But as we kind of wrap up this portion of the conversation, it'd be great to know, in all of your experience, and maybe it's evolved, but at this point, what are the 3 mistakes that founders make? What are the primary mistakes that they make that you see?
In no order of importance, I want to share these with you guys, because and you have to decide which one is the most dominant inside of your world. But when you're trying to grow a business and you are really looking to break through to another level, you typically run into one of these mistakes, or all of them. One of them is being the most important person in your business. If you are the chief salesperson, if you are the chief firefighter, if you are the chief anything, really, you are positioning yourself as the most important person in your business. And I don't know who said this, but it was just very succinctly said. If you are the most important person in your business isn't very valuable. And it's because no investor wants to buy a business where they're going to have to install someone who's got this special set of skills like the founder. We all develop a very unique set of skills for our businesses and our industry, and we can read the tea leaves, and we are proud of that. But if we haven't transferred that knowledge to someone else, we're still the most important person in the business. So that's the first one. The second one is what got us through most problems is by working harder. Getting up earlier. Having a full day's work, going home, maybe having dinner with family, and then you break open the laptop again and you work from 8 o'clock till midnight. I got to catch up. This is the time I have where I can, get ahead. They work weekends. I've had clients that are getting up before 5 o'clock to try to get ahead. And I'm like, how much earlier are you going to get up? Something's broken. So if your only leverage point is to work harder, hustle more, it's a mistake that you're making if you're trying to scale your business. You want to, I don't want to get into solutions today, but I just want to highlight some of the problems so you're in a founder dependency mode. And the third one is really about control. This is more of a blind spot than it is something that you're aware of. Because most people, if you ask them directly, what's your relationship with control in your business? Oh, no issue. But when you, as a trained coach, and I've got a few questions I will ask that will start to strip away this, I will start to hear things like, well, I'm the only one that knows how to do that, or I'm the only one that can make that decision. I don't know why they can't do it. And you're trying to control things, and it really does get in the way because, as I mentioned before, your A players never want to be controlled. They want to have freedom and autonomy. They want to be empowered. They want to have the ability to make an impact. But if you control them, they'll eventually run away from you, and they'll find another place that does represent them, or they'll go and start their own thing.
Yeah.
Because they're great at what they do. They're A players.
Right.
And so what you have to do instead, again, I don't want to get into too much solutioning, is just recognize that control has a grip on you, and that you have to learn to say, okay, when am I going to let that go? How am I going to do that? And that's where we come in, because that's the deeper elements of the coaching that we work with, is being most important, hustling harder, or just trying to control as you grow.
Gotcha. Great. So those three elements, you just actually summarize them. I was going to summarize them, but that's perfect.
Sorry, took away your thunder, Steven.
No. It's, I always like to do that. It's like we have a lot of conversation, and then, hey, like, what is the gist? What is that? I always think of things in frameworks. And so it's great to see your work, right, that you've developed over 14 years. Like you said, Get Founder Freedom is your proprietary knowledge. It's your secret sauce that you developed, that only you really have knowledge of in this way. Of course, there are many coaches, but to be able to claim the same success, to be able to take people through this same pattern, to be so involved in the nuances of where to make these pivots in life, and of course through the business, really just makes your model so unique in that way. And it's great to see and great to talk about. Of course.
Yeah, it's something we're proud of. And I will say, my wife is in the business, and it's probably not common for people, but we wrote our first book together, which I'll lift up here, because customary, How to Have Tough Conversations with Our AI Coach.
Okay.
We wrote that together. And so when this next book came up, we were literally not wanting to write another book because it's very hard. And we take a different approach with this one. We've done just sort of a shorter book this time. It's 40 pages. And it doesn't have a lot of the how-to in it, but it has the mental shifts that are necessary, that you have to go through 8 freedoms to be able to get to a place where you truly are free in your business. I will tell you, the last one is a financial freedom. And I know we talk about that in a personal sense, but in a business sense, the business creates healthy profits, and it is growing without your focus and impact. And then, the start of that, the first of those 8 freedoms, is a mental freedom, which it starts in your head, because you've got to learn to let go of certain things. You've got to learn to show up differently as a leader if you want to create freedom, because if you try to control things, guess what? You're doing the work.
Right.
I'll give you one quick example behind this. I had a client of mine, and they were, I want to say 17, 20 million. So not small. And he goes, yeah, there's someone person on the team that does slides for us. And their grammar's really bad and their spelling is terrible. And I go, oh, I wrote a book on tough conversations. When you have that tough conversation with them, what did they say? And he goes, oh, I've never told them. I just go behind them and fix it. And I'm like, well, when would they learn if that's the way you operate? He goes, that's a good question. I guess they'll never learn. And I went through the same journey in my own, serial businesses over the years of, if you do it for them, when will they learn to do it? And it really was a game changer for me when I really thought about that. And I said, okay, no, I'm going to empower my people. And it's a mental shift first, but the 8 freedoms walk you through everything in between, the first one and the 8th one I just gave you.
Cool. And I saw on there your other book, the Get Founder Freedom. Does that also include the AI kind of like portion of it, or is it just this last one that you showed, like the tough?
It doesn't. I think when we make more updates to the book, because the intention is to prove the concept, and we're working with it with founders right now and walking them through all 8 freedoms. And we've been doing this for years, but we're just really refined it, in this recent past. And this is the way we work. I'm not just throwing something out there I think that works in theory. I'm showing you what is proven.
Yeah.
And so I think we will put the AI element in that will give you some prompts to use inside of the book. And we could do that very easily right now, but right now it doesn't have it. But I will tell you, I'll just brag on the work that my team did. The tough conversations is something that most people struggle with. Most people avoid, and if you don't avoid them, they're having terrible ones. And so we built frameworks for it. So 2 core frameworks inside of this that are really helpful. I walked a client through it today. They're doing better, but we just reinforced it. So I just let's go through them again. And he was missing a couple of things. So I'm glad we did a little refinement there. But we were able to, I guess about a year ago, put all of our IP inside of a private GPT. And it can be done in any other type of LLM that you prefer, but we just chose this first as a beta. And it has our IP. It asks you questions. You can use the voice mode, but the killer app behind it, and this is going to change everything probably very soon, is the ability to role play. And if you have a tough conversation that's high stakes, you want to go in as prepared as possible so you can role play with our tool. And that is just a really incredible use for AI for something like this that I didn't even know was possible a year ago.
Yeah, it's incredible. And this is where we're starting to transition. I'm glad you opened up the conversation here, Gene.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more, and also, viewers. So I buy the book, and then I want to start having these conversations. So is it a link that you allow people to just open up an application? Do they have to pay for it or register?
It's free. Right now, we want you to register for it as an email, just like an opt-in, free. And we'll give it to anyone you don't even have to buy the book. So if you want to put it in the show notes, we'll give it to you guys.
Okay.
But it is, most people won't use it. I mean, that's the problem with AI. Like they're like, oh yeah, that's a cool tool. But then they forget about it and they haven't really made it a part of their process.
Sure.
But we made it simple, easy. It's free, and it walks you through the IP. I think you should read the book, but I'm okay if you don't. I'm okay if you just jump in there and get some insight on it. I'll give you a tip behind this. Someone wanted to fire their vendor. I don't know if it was a marketing company or not, but let's just say a vendor. And so this is one of my wife's friends. So she's like, just use it and it'll help you. And we walked through the phases. And so the 4th phase is exit. But this was not an employee, so they didn't have to go through the other phases. And they're just like, look, you've let us down. I want to have a tough conversation about that. And so it was role playing. Here's the thing that it came up with. It said, be aware that your vendor may try to renegotiate with you, give you a better price, give you some other incentive to continue working with them to give them another chance for the turnaround. So you need to make up your mind in advance. Do you want to give them another chance, or are you just done? And she didn't think much about it until she got into the conversation, and the vendor comes back and goes, I'd love for you to give us another chance. Would you allow us to do this, this, and this? And she's like, I thought about that. No, we're done. So it gave her the power to confidently say this and just shut the door when, and she did that in advance. She was very intentional. And that's one of the things that runs through our coaching. But using the role play
conversation with your AI that you trained, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
And it gave her that insight and said, just be aware that this may come up. And it did. And so she's like, that's really great. Now, we'll tell you, some other guy goes, I used it with a conversation with my wife. And I said, hold on, it was not designed for personal conversations, especially with your wife with high emotions and things like that. He goes, but it allowed me to think through what I did. And it asked me questions like, how is she likely to respond to this? And so I thought it through. And when I had a much better conversation than I've had before. And so I was like, well, I'm glad it helps you, but it's not designed for the personal conversation. It's mostly for the professional ones.
And and that's a good important distinction, right? To tell people and tell viewers who might just be getting into AI and not understanding, well, why can't I just go to ChatGPT or Claude or some of these other generic AI tools? And really, it's that you've trained this AI on on a subset of your proprietary knowledge. And so, like you were literally saying to this person, it wasn't intended for that use, right? So great, he was able to glean some benefit off of there with his wife, but that's the idea that I want to talk about a little bit more. Again, being on this podcast, that being in the AI industry, having worked for Silicon Valley companies like Google and Twitter, or consulted with them, is the fact that we have to be careful, like, or not just be careful, but we have to remember that these tools will behave the way they're trained. And in this case, that's the value add of why you would go out and build a custom proprietary private LLM that your customers, clients could have this conversation with, because it's trained on that information. If you go ask those same questions to chat, it's going to give an entirely different answer because it doesn't have the context with which
Yeah.
you've trained it on. So just wanted to point that out. It might be commonplace now, but I think a lot of people need to be reminded about why we do this and why we train. Because I've done it for dozens of companies now, where we've built this as like their infrastructure, where you take their core knowledge of what they like, whether it's processes, standard operating procedures, books clients have written, you name it, right? And then you train it, and then that's the basis from which you build everything out and scale everything. So it's great.
So let me give you an example of this. We're building something for a client right now, and we're not using AI, but this is the exact, I think, use case that you're talking about, Steven. Every business has its own processes.
Yep.
And no, it doesn't matter what the name of your business is, but let's use an ABC company, right? So there should be an ABC way for most things, right? How do we sell? How do we handle customer service problems? How do we handle a customer who's disappointed? How do we market? How do we do this? The ABC way could all be put into a private LLM.
That's right.
A tool that is you have curated in advance intentionally. This is how we do things here.
That's right.
It can give freedom to be like, okay, well, you can have some flexibility in these areas, but these are the boundaries. These are the things that we do, and your people would have access to this. And so I really believe you're onto something with what you're doing. Not that you need my stamp of approval, but I do believe a lot of companies are not scaling because they didn't have tools like this. And so it's inside the head of the founder, that is wanting everyone to make decisions.
Yes.
But they don't have a rubric to give them a way to make those decisions.
The problems that we've been solving on the AI side aligns. I didn't want to interrupt you when you were getting your framework out, but it's that founder dependency. It truly is. It was so cool when we got a chance to talk about this, because clearly you have a way that is absolutely necessary, right? That AI cannot solve right now. But in the same sense, there are other aspects that can be solved that AI is getting really good at now. I'll just give this quick perspective of just a year ago, a client who was running a successful mailbox store. They had multiple kind of like franchises. And so, but they were the dependency. They were highly in operational mode, and they needed just technology. At the time, AI, a couple of years ago, I guess I should say, it wasn't as big that there was nothing that we were going to integrate. It was just automating procedures. And that was able to give this individual, 80% of their time back, because they were no longer bouncing between spreadsheets and this and that. And it was basically a custom enterprise platform for that business that was specifically built, that did everything from like scanning in boxes. You could check in, check out, automated messages. But now AI takes that to another level in terms of the autonomy and decisions that can be made. if there is like the thing that I like to elucidate for people too is that, you know, we're certainly in this very unique space where everyone is aware of AI now. And I'd say it was a great marketing ploy for companies like Claude and ChatGPT or OpenAI, because what they did was they made this generic LLM that allowed the AI to be very creative. Previous to this, AI existed in the terms of like scientific models, mathematical models, where the parameters were much more succinct but it did a specific thing. So now what you hear people talking about is hallucinations, right? And that's almost by design that it is being creative when it's thinking about these things and it's analyzing all this information. So that's another problem that organizations have when they bring in generic AI is they realize all of a sudden they're like, whoa, this like if you really start to ask it financial information and leave it up to kind of like whatever it decides, it's going to come up with something different every time. And it's if you try to go give that to a client or whatever it might be, you're really depending on that information to be exact. It'll make it up. It'll make you feel really good about it, let you know that you did a great job, and then here you go. And then all of a sudden you start asking, well, where did you get that information? And it'll say, oh, sorry, I made that up. So, it's really, really interesting to just call that out for folks because it lends itself to this idea that company ABC has its own way. And that's what makes it necessary to train your LLM on your proprietary knowledge. And that's everything that we, have come to actually create with a tool that we call Expert AI OS. So it's, I'll give a little background here, but yeah, just wanted to share that because it perfectly aligns with everything you were saying about removing the founder bottleneck, training somebody who you can trust to make those decisions for you. It was great. Great to hear that.
Well, I do believe you're on the right track with this, and maybe you're a little ahead of the curve, which is exactly where you should be because you're not too far ahead. People are ready for this, and I just see it coming, and so I think you're onto something.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, after our last conversation, I had an idea that I'm even happy to share here, but you trained your LLM on a book that you wrote and it's all meant to role play. And I was just thinking, maybe there's something we could do to like people love audiobooks. So what if a new platform could be an audiobook that you listen to, but at the same time you could just stop it, ask questions, have that role play, something like that. I was not sure if you've seen anything out there or considered that, but
I haven't thought about that, but that is a good use behind it. I will tell you, recording a book is one of the hardest things I've ever done. Our brain doesn't read every word. When we're scanning things, we're scanning and we can put context in it because our brains are just so sharp about these things. And when you are doing an audiobook, you have to enunciate every word. You can ad lib a little bit. Certain people have different flavors, but it's really hard. But I like the idea of the added feature of, let me pause right here for a second. How does this play out? How would this work in my industry?
exactly.
And it was able to give you context, or maybe even ask more questions like a coach would,
Exactly.
and give you
At that
some
moment,
insight.
at that exact moment.
At that
when they
exact
begin the
moment. I like that.
conversation. Yeah.
Maybe it's a new platform that you're going to develop here, Steven.
We're just trying to come up with new ideas, Gene, that are going to disrupt the industry. You had mentioned how difficult it is to train to read a book for an audiobook. And we could train an AI, Gene, on your voice, and it can read the entire audiobook.
Oh, I know we're there yet. I know we're there. Yeah. I've resisted the clone thing, I will tell
So
you.
just some ideas.
It might be wrong for me to resist it. I see other people doing it in our space. I don't know. I haven't made my mind up of how I feel about the clones inside
the
of
voice.
this.
Just
Yeah,
the voice
it could
so
be
that
just
way
voice.
you
It's
can
not the
read your
same.
book.
It's just you don't want, the clone thing is just I think it's fine for most people.
Yeah.
I just haven't decided I want to do it. Maybe this is one area where I'm just like, I'm kind of old school. I like to be able to do things myself. But the voice thing, I could see myself doing that because it is a very laborious process to
Right.
read your book. But if you add that component in there, because here's the funny thing about this, and I'm kind of excited about your idea. I've always said, well, your book doesn't talk back to you. And so it's really hard to learn leadership.
That's the key.
But now your book, you can stop you and say, hey, let's pause here for a second. How is this idea useful in your business? And then you go into a chat conversation with this, and it could deepen your understanding of it. Maybe you ask questions and going, I'm not sure how it is. And it gives you some clarity before you move forward. So I know we could probably talk about this for
We can
hours.
talk about that, but that's a great way to end. It's a great way to end it. I wanted to be able to let you know that I thought a lot about, what you had described to me in your business. And, not only did I want to make sure that we had a good framework for this podcast session, give something useful to the listeners and any viewers about, what you do in your business and how you've been transformative for so many people at this point. Like you said, I know you have had over 1,000 people on the podcast, but how many businesses or people have you served in your 16 years?
It's hard to say. I know that we've worked with more Inc. 5,000 level companies in leadership development than anyone in the world. It's hundreds of people.
Great.
And it's just because we've been doing this for a while, and we're touching not just founders. Sometimes it's executives and directors and managers and VPs and all this stuff. So that being said, love the work that we're doing.
Yeah.
Steven, I appreciate you being here, allowing us to share that with the audience. Founder dependency is a real issue, and hopefully those that are interested, look me up and let's have a conversation. We don't sell in a traditional way. I won't go into the process, but it is a very unique way that we actually engage with clients that is high value and only requires a small amount of trust to move forward with that.
Great. And if people want to know more about you, I'll drop a link also in our description.
Yeah, I mean, that's a complicated question because my business name is coreelevation.com.
Oh.
My podcast is on my genehammett.com domain. Growth Think Tank is the name of the podcast. And then, of course, the book is Get Founder Freedom. And that is not available where you buy books. How to Have Tough Conversations is. So we've been around so long. We have so many kind of properties and domains, but I'll get you a list of those, Steven, so you can include this in with the podcast.
Great. Yeah. Maybe give someone the link to the AI tool to have a.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I don't have like an easy download for it, but I'll give it to you so that you can have it and you can share it with anybody who wants it.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Gene. You have a great day.